We all need something in our lives, whether it be a fulfilling and enjoyable line of work, or finding that special someone that can make life feel brand new again. But deep down, we all need the same thing: to beat up Reddit moderators. Xenoclash is a franchise that has flown under the radar for a majority of players. It did for me at least. The original games were developed by Ace Team, with Tripwire publishing the first, and weirdly enough, Atlas publishing the second. I have no clue how that came about. I honestly thought that they would have been too busy planning the Persona 5 franchise for the next 10 years. Xenoclash is a first-person beat-em-up style game. It's chaotic, disorienting, bizarre, and downright off-putting at times. It's also some of the most fun I've had with a video game in a while. It was something of love at first sight for me. If you've been watching my videos for a while now, thank you for that, by the way. I love you very much. You'll know that I love media that just feels off. Whether it's wacky, goofy, unconventional, or even kind of disturbing, I usually just can't get enough of it. Xenoclash ticks all of the boxes for me, and somehow manages to wrap it all up with an insanely fun gameplay loop. So get ready, clench your fists and grit your teeth, where we're going 8 for the faint of heart. Join me as we smoke some Xenodoinks in the land of Xenozoic.
Out here, Xenozoic. Smoking big doinks in Xenozoic.
The first of the two games we'll be looking at today is Xenoclash, as you probably would have guessed by now. Released in 2009 on the good old Source engine. It was honestly hard for me to realize initially that this game even ran on Source. Could it just be me being slow? Yeah, most likely. But it was also the fact that the game is insanely vibrant and colorful. Having played an unhealthy amount of games from the mid to late 2000s, I was fully expecting to meet a world covered in dull grays and browns. Maybe even the occasional dark green if the devs were feeling generous. So it was quite a shock to be met with the vibrant colors of the opening levels. In the opening cutscene, we're introduced to our protagonist / playable murder hobo, Gat. Gat starts the game by promptly bombing a public plaza, killing one individual and injuring several more. Nice. Before fleeing the scene of the crime, Gat has some tutorial hallucinations. Here we learn to punch, heavy punch, block, dodge, standard fighting game mechanics. And with the knowledge gained from what is likely a severe brain injury, we are thrown into our first combat encounter. Off the bat, the combat is insanely fun. Very rarely in Xenoclash are you ever presented with an even fight. You'll be fighting 3 or more enemies with every combat encounter. This makes the combat feel fast and chaotic. You gotta be running to reposition while frantically switching targets. Your survival in this game depends on your ability to manage multiple enemies at once. After passing out again due to cranial hemorrhaging, we have another tutorial hallucination. This time, our spirit guide shows us how to use guns. The fact that there were even guns in this game surprised me, as the combat seemed so centered around melee. Your boy Gat's got the gat now. It's deadly in these streets. The moment-to-moment gameplay is still about clobbering everyone with your fists though, as you can quickly be disarmed if you're not careful. Enemies can even pick up weapons you drop and turn them on you. After you deal with all your assailants, you and your new companion, Deidre, make your escape into the wilderness. What follows over the next 2 or so hours feels like watching bum fights from the 5th dimension. I had a fairly difficult time trying to find something to compare Xenoclash to. It's nearly impossible for me because I don't think I've ever played a game quite like it. The combat and setting are unlike anything I've experienced before. I know that seems like an overly dramatic statement, but I spent the better part of my precious youth toiling away at FPS lobbies, so it is new to me. Xenoclash is a short game. The main campaign mode can be finished in just an afternoon if you're in a rush. The length of the game works perfectly well for me though. Stories with grand 75+ hour campaigns are cool and all, but it's always refreshing to play a complete experience in the amount of time it takes to watch a movie, or one FNAF video essay. What makes this game so easy to blast through is how fun fighting is.
Disgusting creatures, get out of my sight.
The first thing you may notice about Xenoclash is just how unique the game looks. The game takes place in a setting. Whether it's post-apocalyptic, sci-fi, alien, all of these or none of these, I can't tell, man. All I know is I love it. The art team at Ace put their whole zanussi into the world and characters. It's hard to describe the feeling that comes with experiencing the realm of Xenozoic for the first time. Every enemy is different from the last, and all the more bizarre. Hell, the first fight pits you against John Pork. That was a cameo I wasn't expecting to see, considering recent events. All of the environments and even the weapons are these ramshackle amalgamations of organic material and metal. I could waffle on about how much I love the art and design of the world. Nothing will compare to just playing it for yourself though. But what I will say is that the world exudes this primal feeling. This isn't a civilized place. It's chaotic and brutal, just like the game's combat. As you progress through the game, you pick up more advanced fighting techniques. You also run into enemies that barrel into you with the force of a freight train. Fighting these fat fucks while managing all their freaks trying to kill you, while also keeping track of various weapons in play, makes for some surprisingly deep combat. There are unfortunately some sections of the game where the fun takes a huge hit. Some sections force you to go through entire levels that are just shooting oriented, or have some kind of gimmick. Xenoclash truly shines through when you're in the heat of melee combat. Every punch and kick has a satisfying weight to it, making your opponents ragdoll into other enemies, or crash through the environment. There is a sense of triumph that is rare to find in other games, as you stand over the broken bodies of the mutants that thought they had what it took to lay you low. Every victory feels earned. Or you can just spam as many skull bombs as you can and watch enemies ragdoll away. That works too. Tying all of these rampages together is the game's story. Xenoclash's story isn't going to be the main draw of this game. With only around 2 hours of playtime, there isn't a huge amount of room to explore a grand and engaging narrative. That being said though, what is here is actually fairly intriguing. I'll try to give a brief rundown. The entity we seemingly kill in the beginning of the game is known as Father Mother. Father Mother is Gat's father and mother, and having just blown them to smithereens, your siblings are now hunting you down for revenge. Gat mentions a couple times that he knows Father Mother's secret, but isn't willing to talk about it. The game follows Gat and Deidre as they flee the city of Halstrom and look for a place to evade their pursuers. After a long journey of battling gas station meth heads, our duo reaches the end of the world. Here they meet this absolutely ripped dude called Golem. Golem mysteriously knows who Gat and Deidre are, the whole journey they've been on, and Father Mother's secret to boot. He convinces the two to return to the city of Halstrom and to stop running away from their issues. Their issues being that people are trying to kill them. Anywho, all three of them return to the city where, surprise surprise, Father Mother isn't actually dead. They survived and now you gotta duke it out, as they're willing to kill Gat to keep their secrets safe. After winning a fight that you had no right winning, I mean, look at this thing. Gat decides to spare Father Mother's life and keep their secret. Golem then pulls the biggest nuh-uh and just decides to tell everybody their secret anyway. The secret being that Father Mother is nobody's father or mother. They just stole babies away from unsuspecting families. I love this game, but that was the most obvious reveal ever. How did you guys even think you were actually related? That dude has a fucking beak. And with that, Xenoclash comes to a close. The story and voice acting was definitely the weakest part of the game, but I still found it pretty enjoyable. There are these moments where the characters just say some ridiculous voice line, and I have no idea if it was supposed to be funny.
Erminia peed on herself and starved to death anonymously.
But it made me laugh regardless. Xenoclash was honestly a 9 out of 10 experience for me. The game has so many elements that I personally love to see, along with a combat system that's incredibly fun. There's also a challenge mode if you're fiending to pummel in as many faces as possible. There's definitely hints at more to come and a larger story unfolding here. I was determined to sink my teeth into as much of this world as I could get my hands on. Fortunately, that's where Xenoclash 2 comes in. Xenosplash Poo was released in 2013 with Atlas doing the publishing this time. The game seems to have received a boost in budget since the last installment. There's a lot of new things that 2 brings to the table. Some of it good, some of it not so much. The most noticeable thing being the length of the game. This game is around 6 hours this time. Unfortunately, the added length isn't accompanied by the requisite girth to make the experience more enjoyable. The first notable change from the first game is a switch to a semi-open world style map. The realization of this gave me PTSD flashbacks, but I find the world of Xenoclash to be hella enjoyable, so it gets a pass in my book. We see the same locations as the first game again, but they've been opened up a lot more. There's also new secrets and collectibles to find scattered about. Some areas are more fun to explore than others though, like the city of Halstrom. I wonder what rent goes for around here. The combat also received some nice touch-ups too. The movesets have been increased, with more ways to violently assault anyone who looks different from you. Gat also has the Rage ability that allows him to go Fist of the North Star mode on people. I never really figured out how to activate it after the tutorial, so I barely used it. There's more enemy variety this time around too, which gave me the added bonus of living out one of my biggest dreams, beating short people to death. The biggest addition to the combat has to be the new abilities Gat's been gifted. 2 of these aren't really that special. They're just a Skull Bomb and a Chain Whip. Where it gets exciting is with the other 2 abilities, the Sun Moon Gauntlet and the Golem Hand. The Gauntlet lets you call down an airstrike mid-combat using the moon or the sun, depending on what time of day it is. The Golem Hand allows you to link 2 enemies together and makes them share the damage and knockback you dish out to just one. The Golem Hand feels especially creative and can be used outside of combat for puzzle solving and boss fights too. There's a lot of other additions to the gameplay I could prattle on about. The upgrade system and the way you recruit allies are some of them. But to be real, I feel like both of these additions didn't add a lot to the gameplay overall. This is where the second game starts to show its shortcomings compared to its predecessor. Of course, it's difficult to improve upon perfection, so I commend the devs for trying. My biggest gripe with the game is its length. 6 to 8 hours doesn't sound all that long, but the slower pace of the combat makes you feel every minute of it. While there are new enemies and new areas to fight them in, these quickly feel exhausted after only a few hours into the game. You're probably wondering if Xenoclash 2 is able to continue the masterclass of storytelling from the first game.
Hey, what you doing out here with all this ass?
Kinda. The sequel does actually manage to expand upon the ideas set up in the first game and make the world of Xenozoic more interesting. The voice acting is somehow worse than the first game though. No idea how they managed that.
But if we need to figure out the golem, we could look for the island, right?
Will it help us if this place is dead? I already know the road to the north.
Whatever. Go to whichever golem house you want. I still want to find the rest of our family so we can fight.
Xenoclash Royale follows up pretty soon after the conclusion of the first game. We learn that Father Mother has been thrown into the slammer for kidnapping everybody's babies. But the thing is, the concept of laws in prison are unfamiliar to the characters. Much like Birmingham in England, the city of Halstrom is ruled by anarchy and inhabited by lawless savages. The one who introduced these new concepts to the city was Gollum, who believes he can help bring civilization to the land of Xenozoic. Gat and his new side piece, Ramat, realize that it won't be too long before they gotta start paying property taxes, so they bust Father Mother out of prison and decide to go against Gollum's imposed rule. Father Mother gets separated from the duo, so Gat and Ramat go off into the lands of Xenozoic to gather up all their old siblings so they can vouch for their former parent and hopefully keep them out of prison. As they go across the world and recruit their former family members to their cause, they run into what appears to be another golem, who gives Gat the Sun Moon Gauntlet, before disappearing again. A bunch of other stuff happens. This video would be too boring if I described the entire plot. Eventually, the game comes to a climax where you and the OG Golem team up to beat the shit out of the East Golem. Remember kids, you're never too civilized to solve your problems with violence. The North Golem decides that they both fucked up, and decide the best course of action would be to kill both himself and the East Golem so that their superiors can send in replacements for them. The whole thing with Father Mother staying out of jail and bringing the family together kinda got dropped halfway through though, I guess. I don't really know. I felt way more lukewarm about Xenoclash 2 than I did the first game. The length of the campaign didn't really do it any favors. Most of the cutscenes were boring to look at, and the voice acting was just... yeah. Overall, I still think it's a good game. At its core, it's still Xenoclash. Beating the life out of multiple Freakazoids at once will never not be fun. I love this franchise. I have no idea how I only discovered it recently. The absolutely cracked out world and characters feel so otherworldly. Every inch of this game oozes creativity. The combat is seriously addicting. I've been itching for something new to experience when it comes to games. I never thought I would have found the answer in this weird little release from Ace Team. Funnily enough too, they released another game in the Xenoclash universe this year. If the trailers are anything to go by, it really looks like they're cranking things up to 11. I'll probably pick it up on sale and let y'all know how it is. So, what can we learn from Xenoclash, from these characters and their stories? Is it that no matter what, our family is all that we have and we gotta protect those closest to us? Or is it that deep down, our savage nature can never be conquered, no matter how hard civilization is imposed on us? It's neither. The game's message is this: fighting people is rad as hell. Thanks for watching.
He was running from a cop car.